So we're going to talk about the deep, the data entry and exploration platform, some of its features, and how it has been used or how it could be further used in the future. Well, deep is the acronym for the data entry and exploration platform, and it's not just a tool, but a set of tools. The objective or the aim of deep is to help us humanitarian analysts on working with unstructured qualitative data, and this is the first time I need to highlight something, and is deep is a platform mostly aimed at helping us with qualitative data, that is text. There are already great tools like Excel or R or Tableau or Power BI, to work with quantitative data. Deep is mostly for qualitative. Nevertheless, there are certain features that include a bit of a quantitative approach, on the way we use them. But that's the first thing I need to say. And what problem does Deep deal with? Well, we went from a scenario in which we lacked data, especially humanitarian data. It was impossible to retrieve or hard to do it, or in a very manual way, to a new context that is nowadays that we have such an overwhelming amount of unstructured data that sometimes we as analysts cannot cope with it. So Deep is aimed to help us with that. How does it do it? Well, through analytical frameworks. I don't know if you're familiar with the term analytical framework, but basically it's like the closet of our data. We try to have it tidied up, well organized. Everything goes into their place, and Deep helps us with that. It doesn't mean that you need to create an analytical framework from scratch, because there are many available already out there, and we'll go through that later. But it's the way we have to structure our data and also our minds and our analysis. And there are many uses for this. Like you can use it for secondary data review, which is the initial use thought for Deep, but also to do protection analysis, media monitoring, etc. Deep, as I said, is not an organization, it's a platform, and it's governed by this set of organizations. I don't know if any of the participants today belongs to any of these organizations. If you do, please say so. And I work for Data Fearless Praise, which is the technical partner of Deep. This is just a couple of screenshots of the Deep. And here are some uses of Deep and the data that originates from it. If you come from the humanitarian sector, I'm sure you're familiar with humanitarian needs review, for instance. So Deep has been used in several contexts as the main repository for secondary data for HNO, but also products and situation reports that come out of Deep have been also used as inputs for various HNOs. For example, the last year's Ukraine HNO. Recently, IMAP together with DFS have been using Deep for the monitoring of the situation in Sudan, producing situation analysis reports. My colleague Anne Schulz participated actually in both of these projects I'm mentioning. So she's, we could say she's also an expert on the analysis side, Also it's been used as the main repository for risk analysis, for building scenarios, etc. It also contains an assessment registry, which we'll go briefly over later, because it's such a specific or niche feature that it's relevant only for certain humanitarians, but it has a pretty comprehensive module. This module not only works as a programmatic tool in the sense that it tells us what is being assessed, where it's being assessed, and how it's being assessed, or where it will be assessed, but also it allows us to evaluate the quality and the comprehensiveness, the coverage of the assessments in a certain country. So it allows us to, for example, give recommendations on what data needs to be retrieved, or for example, if we're relying too much on certain methodologies, etc. It's a niche tool, but quite comprehensive. And well, other examples are media monitoring in Turkey, for instance. Our colleagues from IFRC, before the Syria Turkey earthquake, had been having a project in Deep for 2 years, and it was one of the keys to the success of the Deep or the information management response during the Syria Turkey earthquake was the fact that IFRC had already a baseline. Let's say it was the baseline project in Deep that allowed the whole community to respond quickly to this disaster. And well, it also works for protection monitoring. I don't know if you're familiar with PAF, but our colleagues from the Danish Refugee Council have been piloting the new PAF in several African countries. Please, and again, I cannot reiterate more, like, please do interrupt me, suggest, question anything that I'm saying, because I mean, the whole session is meant for you to find it useful. Quickly, before we go into the platform itself, Deep is it's supposed to help us in the whole analysis workflow. From that creation or conception of that closet we mentioned before, the analytical framework, how we want the data to be structured, what analytical questions we want to be, you want to see replied when analyzing our data. The data assessment registry I mentioned, that repository of assessments, the processing of data, as the data is tagged in Deep, and we'll see later how the data is processed or tagged or categorized or classified. Any of those words are fine. Data is already structured and is ready for others to be used. So that highlights the collaborative soul of Deep. Once we process our data is already it's automatically brought into a dashboard. This dashboard is interactive, and we'll see later how it works. And yeah, we save that step of needing to go, let's say, into Power BI or into Tableau, which are great tools, but need that extra step. No? So here, what we do is, yes, we retrieve the data, which is mostly automated, as we'll see later, or partially automated at least. We process it. We have several ways of processing the data: manual, assisted, semi-automated, and we're going towards the full automation of the processing of data in Deep. We structure it, we make it available for others to play with it, to export it, to analyze, explore it through the dashboard that we mentioned, and then we can do the analysis within the platform. So traditionally, Deep, as when I started, because, well, something is, before I joined the Deep team, I've been a Deep user for many years. So traditionally, we've reached the point on which we exported the data that we found in Deep, and then we did the analysis out of it. Now we have the analysis module, and we can do the analysis within the platform. We can even create a report and publish data from there. Where are we going towards? We're going towards joint analysis and the possibility of doing risk monitoring and early warning systems within the platform. Now, Deep is going into the end of its development as we know it, and now it's going to be inserted into a wider movement or initiative that is called the Joint Analysis Workspace, on which many partners have joined to provide a space on which all the humanitarian data would be made available, and different partners would be, or stakeholders would be able to do the analysis. Deep will be the tool or the platform that will allow the qualitative data analysis within JOS. I'm not going to go in depth in that, but it's just in case you hear about that JOS, Joint Analysis Workspace, in the future. Again, I encourage you to interrupt me. This is just, open your mics and share your insights if you have any questions. And I give us, I assume as non-certain things, so please ask if something is not totally clear. I'm going to go through briefly some of the NLP features. NLP stands for Natural Language Processing, AI in the last year with the whole ChatGPT explosion. Everyone is aware of what this is, but well, we have several NLP enhanced capabilities or features in Deep. We can differentiate the two main ones. One of them is the tagging pipeline, on which NLP helps us, and the analysis one. On the tagging one, what we mean is we Deep through NLP and the model that we developed can take a document, extract relevant paragraphs, classify them, and tag them according to an analytical framework. So the data will be automatically processed. We'll see later how that works and how that will work soon, okay? On the analysis side, we have a hybrid model, which is not 100% built up by us, but it's a hybrid one that helps us doing the analysis. The first one helps us processing data. The second one, analyzing it. How does it do it? Well, it summarizes the data. It creates something that is called cluster topic clustering. That is that it extracts the data and gives us stories that the model identifies. So it's good for that first data cleaning, that initial analysis that we do, on which we start visualizing what are the main stories behind our text. And where are we going? Well, we're going towards something that is called zero-shot classification. That is a way of extracting and classifying data that doesn't depend on analytical frameworks. We'll see later how this works and how that will open the use of deep for many other users, not those that are purely humanitarian. Here is some NLP interesting sites that you can visit if you want to check the model itself, if you want to see the data set that we've used. It's an open source initiative, so that's what I was mentioning. Now we're going to get into the demo, and we're gonna see how Deep can help us on data collection, on the structuring of our data, on the analysis, and also on that visualization, export, or interactive dashboards that we mentioned before. That being said, we're gonna move into the platform. Any questions so far before moving into the platform? All right.
I don't see any hands, Pepe.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we move into the Deep main page. So this is the Deep web page that you'll see how, I mean, it's gonna go through an overhaul soon, and you'll see like certain categories that might change in the coming weeks. But this is our web page where you can consult some of the things that I've presented so far. But what's interesting for us is here. We click on Access Deep, and then we get into the app itself. You would not get into this screen if you log in for the first time, because what you would find would be this. Here, a few things to be said. You can either log in with your personal institutional accounts or with your humanitarian ID. You have the terms of privacy here, where you can know about data privacy, the use of NLP, your data is safe or is stored, etc. And also you can explore a bit of Deep from the outside. You cannot access the data itself, but you can see who's doing a bit what on which frameworks are they using, etc. Once we register, we would go in here. And here we need to make something explicit that you have to be aware of. So Deep works, it's project-based in the sense that Deep itself doesn't contain any data. It's not that like if you go into Relief Web and you find all the data there. It really eases the process to import data in the platform, but if you get in Deep, you will not find data on the surface. That means that you either join a project or you create your own one. If you want to join a project, you could click here and Explore Deep. This is the Explore Deep dashboard when you are registered, that it has a bit more of information, and you say, okay, I'm interested in a project in Afghanistan. So you would go here, and then you check what's been done. If any of the projects are of your interest, then you can ask to join them. If you prefer to create your own one, then you go for that option. So now we're gonna pretend to create our own project, okay? And now we need to differentiate between different types of Deep users. And I need to highlight this. There is no need for almost anyone to know how to use every feature in Deep. Deep is let's say it's a niche or expert tool, or it could be considered as such because it's really specific for a really concrete way of analyzing data, but there is no need for everyone to know how everything is done in Deep. So now we're going to talk about that person that creates a project, conceives, this data, the secondary data review efforts, and administers the project. So let's say we want to create a project, and then, well, I'm going to go into one that has something, but we would click on here and set up a new project, and then this this screen would open. Okay, here a few things to be mentioned. First, you can test, so you can play with the platform without actually doing anything wrong. So feel free to do it. And a few things here on data sharing. You have different options to share more or less data. If you try to click on sharing confidential data, then Deep will tell you, hey, are you sure you want to share confidential data? Also, you can ask for your project to be completely private. Here, I usually do not encourage this to be done this way. Why? Because projects, as we saw before, are not accessible unless someone accepts you on them. So your data is safe, no matter if your project is private or public. The only reason for a project to be private is when you really want to hide even the organization who's doing it. Let's say, for example, you work on a conflict setting and humanitarians are targeted, so you don't want your organization to be seen even from the outside. You know, the project saying, okay, NRC is working on Afghanistan. Otherwise, we keep the project public, and then we make sure that only the people that we want are part of our project. Here, a few more things, stakeholders, organizations involved, etc. And two things here, we can enable the assessment registry or the dashboard that we'll see later. Then we need to decide what's going to be the geographical scope of our project. Traditionally, DEEP has been used on single country projects. However, we encourage, especially for large organizations, to go for that kind of regional multi-country projects in Deep, because it allows us to, to not only analytically wise, but even visually on dashboards, we can see and better analyze trends. You can either upload or choose the geographical shapes that Deep has in here. Usually has the HTX, the most updated ones, or upload your own customized geographical area. So curiosity, for example, here we have the colleagues from IMAP uploaded Colombia shapes, not on the normal administrative layout of its shapes, but with the indigenous distribution of land, which is an anecdote. But yeah, it's flexible in that way. Here on the users, and we are now focusing on that admin of the project, that person that creates the environment. And here for this process, I encourage you to contact us and go through that project creation together. It's rather a complex process in a way. It's a strategic one, especially when it comes to picking your analytical framework and setting it up correctly. And my job is, and Anasha's job is to help you with that. Please feel free to play with the tool. But if you decide or are thinking about actually creating a project on Deep, just contact us and we'll be happy to help you. Here, users, the main thing here to look at in users is the different roles. So we can ensure a collaborative environment. Let's say, for example, there is a disaster tomorrow, and then we create a project in Deep to respond to a tsunami. And then we say, all right, we're going to create the project and we're going to invite all the organizations that are working on the response. Why? Because the data is mostly going to be public, and we want them, like to access directly to already processed and categorized data, like time. People say like time is money, but in this case, like being late means not delivering aid in a timely manner. So it really has a reason. The whole aim of Deep is to make the response in terms of data management and analysis faster, efficient, transparent. So we can create a project in Deep while at the same time making it collaborative, but also restrict the access to certain documents. For example, I am the Norwegian Refugee Council, and I have some preliminary assessments on protection that I do not want everyone to see. And so I would say to my, I would say to the admin of my project, okay, these make it confidential. And for example, if you come and try to join my project, you are a local responder, and I will say, okay, you're a local responder. I appreciate you joining this Deep project, but I'm afraid I'm only going to allow you to read, for example, non-confidential documents. That means you will not be able to edit, to add anything. You can read, export, play with the data, but only the non-confidential. So basically, there are different roles here. And then we got to the big elephant in the room, and it's the creation of the analytical framework. Here, if you're a project admin, you might have an idea of how you want to structure your data. there are two options again. Three. One of them, you create your framework from scratch. There is a module here. You can add a new framework. There's plenty of guidance that we can share with you for this. But basically, the important thing behind the creation of the framework is the concept and the methodological rigor and appropriateness of how your data is structured. Second option is to use someone's framework, and because Deep is not only intended to be a platform for sharing data, but also for sharing knowledge. Frameworks are knowledge in a way, like a way of analyzing and structuring our data. But also, if we use the same frameworks more and more, we'll be able to collaborate more. If we make them interoperable, we'll be able to share more data. So we always encourage to use or at least start from someone's framework. You can explore them, and there is something that we call the deep generic NLP-enabled framework that works great with NLP functionalities, and it's basically a multi-sectoral grid framework that it's 90% compatible with GF, with IFRC framework, with IMAP, with OCHA, so it's good for multi-sectoral analysis. If you work on something like protection analysis, then I would go for the path. Anyway, just come to us, and then we'll try to help you as much as possible when it comes to creating your product. I'm going to go now into connectors, and it's the last thing that we do as a project admin, and the first thing that we do as analysts or secondary data review officers in Deep. So we're going to, little by little, go into the second profile of Deep users. The connectors are, well, to make it easier, the data retrieval, we can create connectors that to bring the data into Deep. In this case, we have some of the most common humanitarian portals, but we can also create our RSS feed, Atom, etc. And again, if you work for an organization and it would be really key to add a really specific connector into Deep, and you think it would be useful for other humanitarians, just let us know. Deep is created by and for humanitarians, so just let us know, okay? Once we've created our connector, then we're done with the administration of our project. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll assume that I said no. Now we're going to move into the second role of Deep users. Well, we call it a tagger or data analyst, secondary data review officer. So it's the person that works on Deep on a daily basis. This person, the first thing that needs to go every day on, well, she or he needs to go every day on Deep, and then first of all, add the data in Deep. So let's go here, let's go to our demo project, we'll open it. And then first thing, and it's the easiest one, is, okay, I'm going to try to bring automatically data into Deep. I'm going to open my connector, and then Deep is going to be, you see, I have several connectors here, but I have a connector, and here is a connector for information from Ukraine from Relief Web. As you see, data is preloaded into the platform, and all the metadata is already filled in. So it saves a lot of time, not only because it brings data in, but also because it pre-tags it, or at least the metadata that will help us then filter our documents. Here, as you see, I haven't maintained as I should my project because I have 900 documents. But if you log in Deep on a daily basis, you check on the 10, 12 documents that are published every day on Relief Web, you add them, you ignore them, and then they are already loaded into your project. That's one way of adding data into Deep. Another one is going to any web. Let's say, for example, we're doing some media monitoring and then adding it directly from there. For that, I encourage you to use the Chrome extension, the Deep Chrome extension. Regular one, just click in here, and then you'll download it. Why? We're going to see why. We're going to go, for example, CNN webpage, and then we're going to add some news, okay? We will not be retrieving information from, politics, but anyway, we just go in here and we would click on the Deep extension. And I need to ask you now if you're seeing the pop-up of the Deep extension or not, because it depends on what I'm sharing on the screen. You can see it, Anisha?
Yes, Pepe. Sorry, I didn't
Okay.
realize I'm on mute. I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, basically, as you see, we got already all the metadata. Everything is already preloaded into this. So it saves a lot of time. Not only because we need to. Well, we still need to look for the data, but as you see, it's already been filled in. So then we would click on here and save, and my media source would be already added to it. That is the second way of adding data in DIP. The third one would be to add it either from our shared clouds or from our local disk. You can do it either one by one or on bulk. Okay, so now we finished our data collection task at in our early morning. Now we need to process that data. When we process data, we're going to move into a project that actually has a lot of data. So traditionally there are three ways of adding data in DIP. How is that? Well, the first one is the manual way of tagging. So we have this menu here. We can either see the original view or the simplified text. Why we have both? Well, the original view sometimes is helpful for doing screenshots. And that's why I encourage you to download the Chrome extension, because it's the one that allows us to take screenshots. So sometimes we need to process images, even though we focus mostly on text. Or we can see the simplified text view that you see it's more plain, but this is what makes the model, the NLP model, improve and work best. Back to tagging, there are three ways and a fourth way that is coming in DIP. Traditional way, we go through every paragraph and then we click on this little arrow, and then we tag and we say, okay, this is talking about casualties in conflict. It's talking also about areas of control that there has been a change and impact on coping mechanisms for protection, let's say. Then we'll click on here. We'll go to secondary tagging, say, okay, this took place in Khartoum. And then we will basically tag everything manually. We can say, okay, it's talking about unaccompanied children in Khartoum. And it's talking about IDPs and children. So this is really comprehensive, really granular, and it's really helpful in the case, for example, we have this project for, like we process the data once, and once it's done, it's ready to be used by many others. It takes some time, but it's really useful later on. However, we know that this sometimes is not enough. We're working in time constraint environment. So the second way that DIP has to help us processing data is the assisted tagging. Assisted tagging still requires us to select the text, but we would click on this little brain, and if the text is somehow relevant, DIP will give us a certain category of the data that we have. Then we can say, okay, this is correct or it's not correct, and then we can edit it. But DIP has already provided us with the tagging. It's saving some time. We still need to read it, but it saves some time. Then we have the third way of processing data in DIP. That is the automatic tagging. That is, we would click on here. No need to read the document. We click on here, and then DIP will not only give us the categories, but also select the relevant document, the relevant paragraphs. Okay, this feature has only been launched 3 months or 4 months back. It's still in the process of improving, but you get a feeling of actually saving time. Yes, okay, maybe next you need to review the document, you need to review the text, but most of the work is already done. Then we would go here and click on add entry or discard it. Now DIP just told me a similar entry has been found. That means that I have already tagged this. So DIP detects not only duplicate documents, but also duplicated entries. That is the third way of processing data in DIP. There will be a fourth one that it's on the making now. That would be, okay, I don't even want to go and review all these entries, but actually to click here on just a little button, and all your document would be automatically tagged and confirmed. You need to acknowledge the limitations of this, and that data might not always be correct because of NLP, and you need to check the data, but the same as you do when you look on Google or when you use, let's say, ChatGPT. Any questions over here, we're going to move now into, for example, the dashboard. So as we process the data goes and consolidates in this dashboard, for example, that is generated automatically. This one is for a project we have in Pakistan. So you don't need to take care of this, but this is generated automatically. You can check the information in different admin levels, depending on how it's tagged. You know, we can check on sectors, on the operational environment, affected groups, organizations that are taking part of, you know, are publishing the data. A lot of data, and also it's embeddable in the sense that it can be shared. And because this dashboard doesn't give us access to the data, it can be embedded anywhere, and we will not be compromising the data. That's one way of having a look at the data. And here we're moving to that third profile that we're mentioning of the user. It's someone that either does analysis or either just exports data or, you know, or checks on it. He or she doesn't need to know how the data is structured, doesn't know how to create the framework, doesn't know how tedious or not tedious the processing of the data is, but actually just uses it and benefits from the data. So how can you do that? So you can do something that is, okay, I want to check the data in the platform. We can go here and then establish as many filters as we want. So we say, all right, I want the data here from WASH, and actually from a certain region or coping mechanisms. Let's say I want to see if people are defecating outside or if they are drinking water from unsafe sources or so. Then we can either see the documents or the pieces of data that are relevant. In this case, we have 101 entries that match our filters. We can be as granular and specific as we want. Okay, so we can either go and check it here. We can see the document itself, or extract it and use the analysis from here. That's one option. Second option we have, and it's been the traditional one, it's exporting data. We go here, click on a new export. We decide whether we want it in PDF, Word, JSON, Excel. We can edit a few things there, and then we'll get an export. Again, we can have an export, for example, for WASH for 1 month. I'm going to show you how this looks. And we have it here. This is how an export for shelter with non-confidential data for Sudan for January looks like. We have on this side of the screen, we have the structure of our analytical frameworks. As you see, shelter, impact, drivers, humanitarian conditions. We can navigate it. So we say, okay, I want to see what are the coping mechanisms in January for shelter. We go here, and then we see what data we have. It's quite, you know, go straight to the point. As you see, we have plenty of like a legend of reliability, data is cited, etc. Or we have these screenshots. If you're more, I mean, this is, I would say, ideal for reporting. If you are more of a quantitative person, you can use also the Excel export. As you see, well, we have as many columns as different tags we have, but you need to remember that though we are having here some sort of a quantitative approach, the data we're still working with, it's still, as you see, qualitative. It's text. It's this column, the actual text. But yeah, and also this is good if you want to, for example, to pivot and to move it into Tableau, for example, which I've done in the past. So those are the experts, but you can also do the analysis in deep, as I mentioned before. So there is also an option for performing our analysis within the platform. Well, I haven't mentioned the assessment registry, but yeah, we have a repository of assessments that we can explore. Is an expert tool, let's say, and very specific, but on which we say which are the sectors affected, methodologies, summaries, scores. We can evaluate it, and once we do that, we get the assessments dashboard of a certain context. In this case, we have Ukraine, and we have how have the assessments been done, which methodologies have been used, what's the sample for each of them, where have they taken place, etc. Okay, I'm not going to go in depth into this. If you have any further questions, next week we're going to do a full demo on the assessment registry. Now we go into the analysis. So okay, yes, I've created the project, I am the admin, then you have processed all the data, have made it available, and then we moved into that third person that made some exports and so, but now we have the fourth person that is the one that makes the analysis. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be the same person. We can do the analysis now from deep, and that is done through the analysis module. As you see here, you can set up a new analysis. I'm not going to go much in depth into how this interface works, but on what it actually does. So we've created here the analysis for wash for, let's say, 1 month. Okay, we click here on analyze, and then we're going to get this screen. So right now, Deep has just taken all the data that I filtered. In this case, it's maybe 500 entries from wash. Usually we're going to get this screen is going to be absolutely blank, except for the column in the left. Okay, why? Because we would not have stories yet created. However, if we don't want to do this manually, so now we could do something that is, okay, I'm going to create my story. Let's pretend we don't have anything here. I would click on here and say, all right, I'm going to go one by one my entries and say, okay, this entry has to do with open defecation. And then this entry is also about that. This one is not relevant. So I would say, okay, this is redundant or it's too old. So I can, yes, it's rigorous. It's still quite slow. However, what's the interesting thing here to do? So it's, okay, we already have a filter, as we said before, and we click on this auto cluster button. I'm going to save that minute that or 40 seconds that it takes. That's why I had it prepared already. We click on auto cluster, and Deep, out of the entries that we filtered, gives us a series of stories that it identifies, and it gives us the entries that are relevant for that below it. So in this case, it says, okay, this one is talking about a distribution of in Pakistan. This one is talking about public health. This one is talking about priorities. This one, water provision. So we get these suggested stories that we can, of course, edit, but it gives us that first screening of data. So imagine like we go from taking the documents almost automatically from a corrector, auto processing them through the automatic tagging with some quality control. And then we go here and then Deep out of, let's say, 5,000, 6,000 entries gives us 10 stories that it identifies. Also, those stories, if the data we take them from is already filtered, we'll get really specific stories out of a certain sector. Okay, and now what do we do with this? Okay, this is helpful, but still I need now to review 40 entries. Okay, so we're clicking here, and then we'll go into this screen that is the analysis canvas in which we do the actual analysis. So what we'll get here, and this is going to change soon, I will tell you now how, but basically you get a summary and you would say, but this is just a summary. Well, it's a summary, but it comes from selection of and cleaning of curating of data, selecting the relevant one, processing it for the first time, tagging it, doing quality control, filtering it, and then doing the story cluster, topic clustering. At this point, we already have a pretty solid pre-processing of our data. So this summary usually is quite good if we compare it with the entries that are taking part, are actually integrating it. We also get, for example, this, that is a map that is, if anywhere is mentioned in the text, then Deep will give us a heat map of where the information of this story is taking place. Okay, we got this automatic summary, and then we do our analysis here. This is almost automated, but soon in the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to be more automated in the sense that we're going to get that summary, and then we're going to get directly on, we're going to have 3 boxes here, 1 information gaps, 1 analytical statement, and 1 of summary. Right now, analytical statement needs to be done manually by us. Our brains need to do the analysis. The same for information gaps. However, with the next update, we'll get information gaps, summary, and analytical statement, all in an automated manner. We still need to review it, improve it, and so. But for emergencies, imagine like just having your analysis already done. Then this my analysis part in which we've populated would get automatically filled in with the analytical statement, as we mentioned, with the summary, with the information gaps, and with the evidence that we've used. So here, basically, soon we'll have a statement, summary, information gaps, and my analysis in here. And you say, okay, and now what? Okay, so now, right now, we go into the reporting module, but also in this next update, what we'll get is the possibility of exporting our analysis from here. So we say, okay, I stop here. I want to obtain a Word document out of my analysis, and then I leave this because in my organization, we need to go through comms and then, and edit out of deep. That's really fair. But also we can include these stories into the reporting module. If we click on this, that will mean that we'll go into the reporting module, and let's see how that reporting module looks like. We'll go here, go into reports, and then open the reports. I'm gonna open here that I have it. And then you can have a report. In this case, we created this one for Pakistan, in which we can add many different, let's say, elements. No, we can add text, images, metrics, in the form of quantitative data. We can add a few of those metrics, timelines, bar charts, maps, etc. So as you see, it can look like this. Also, we can embed, in this case, for example, the dashboard that we mentioned before. We have the analysis in here, and well, yeah, we can add maps, or as you see here, a map with different layers. We can add, well, we can have here heat maps or symbols. We can, you see it. So you have plenty of, I mean, if you are GIS people, I'm sure you're familiar with this. Also, you know that we can add this to our reporting module that can also will be also downloadable soon. So this is a bit of deep. We have plenty of resources, and there you'll find many different resources, contacts, and so. So if you have any questions, if you want to organize a deep for you or for your organization, if you don't feel confident introducing this to others, that's our job. Don't worry at all. Then I am just gonna wrap up this demo. Please follow us on socials. They are also available in the presentation I just shared with you. We publish quite often with our events, new updates, features, and so feel free to join any further sessions. And if you're still interested in tool, just contact us and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you so much, and
Thanks,
have
everyone.
a nice rest of the day.